Hello, everybody. Welcome back. We are here with Michigan College Earth Day 50.5. If you are joining us for the first time, thank you and welcome. If you're coming back from previous sessions earlier in the day, welcome back. So as I said, Michigan College Earth Day 50.5 presented by the Michigan Campus Sustainability Collective. This session today for the next hour is how to align your sustainability values and vote with your legislators' decisions. Today we have Hallie Fox here. She is with the League of Conservation Voters, and she is the Government Affairs Intern. Hallie, it's all yours.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Rose, and thank you for being with us today, everyone. I'm really excited to talk to you today a little bit about how to align your votes with how your legislators are voting in the Michigan State Legislature. So first, I'm gonna tell you a little bit more about Michigan League of Conservation Voters. We're an environmental nonprofit here in the state of Michigan. We are bipartisan. We are both issue-based advocacy and political advocacy, and I'm going to explain a little bit more about what that means in a second and how that can relate to aligning your environmental values with your legislator. But again, we mainly focus on the Michigan state government. So although we are a part of the larger League of Conservation Voters organization, which primarily focuses its work in DC and on federal legislation, we primarily do our work here at the Michigan level. So we cover the Attorney General, Dana Nessel, Governor Gretchen Whitmer, of course, and then also the Michigan State House and the Michigan State Senate. And so that is both puts us in a unique position, I think, largely because a lot of the conversation right now is on the federal level, and we'll get there. We'll get to talking about the federal level here at the end of my presentation, but a lot of people don't really know much about what happens in state government. And so I'm going to hopefully provide you today with some resources that will help you get to know your state legislators and some of the activities that are going on here in Lansing. So first, if I can, I'm going to share my screen and tell you a little bit more about Michigan League of Conservation Voters and what we do. So hopefully, here we go. Okay, so this is what we call our cycle of accountability. So Michigan League of Conservation Voters primarily focuses on protecting Michigan's land, air, and water. But what that means is that we need to elect conservation voters in order to protect our land, air, and water. And so we have three real pillars of our work. We work first, I'm going to start over here with electing environmental champions to the Michigan State Legislature. So we have two political action campaigns. One is an independent expenditure campaign, which doesn't coordinate with candidates, but can run independent campaign ads. And so you actually might have seen some on the airwaves, especially if you live over in Oakland County. We've been running quite a few, mainly PFAS-based ads, but we are allowed to run our own ads on TV and run that independent expenditure campaign. But on the other side of things, we also have a pretty robust C4 part of our organization, which is allowed to coordinate with political campaigns. And so that's the side of our organization that primarily, first of all, that the government affairs team works on. But also during election season, we do a lot of endorsements. And so we'll do a little tour of our website here in a second, and I'll show you some of our endorsed candidates. But I think that this is one of the more critical parts of our organization is electing environmental champions to the Michigan State Legislature. Of course, once they get to Lansing, it's our job to also educate legislators on environmental issues and also educate the public on environmental issues in Michigan and what the Michigan State Legislature is actually doing to address environmental issues in Michigan. And so that would be our C3, again, portion of this organization would be primarily focused on educating the public and promoting civic engagement. And then what I'm going to kind of talk about and spend most of the time today talking about is our tracking and scoring, so our accountability suite. And primarily what our accountability suite does is we look at decisions that environmental leaders and legislators in the state have made. And we keep a scorecard of the decisions that they've made. So on major environmental votes that take place in the Michigan State House and the Senate, we track each legislator's vote, and we score them so that we can better educate the public on exactly what their environmental leaders are doing in the Michigan State Legislature. So that's kind of an overview of our organization and what we do. And hopefully you've gotten just a bit of a sense of how this track and score component of our organization can help you in going to the ballot box and voting for people who reflect your views. I always run through our principles of environmental leaderships just so you can get a sense of really what we're judging these legislators on. So our organization's basic priorities is that, so I'm going to say that water is our bread and butter. We generally, although climate change is a highly important issue to us, we really believe that water is the base issue. Ensuring that water is accessible, clean, and affordable for everyone in the state of Michigan, I would say, is our #1 priority. Very closely behind that, I would say almost tied, and especially in the coming years, we're going to see clean energy is a huge issue for us. So ensuring that the energy that we're providing to Michigan homes, residents, and businesses are clean and do not contribute to climate change is also a major issue for us. Some of the more traditional environmental values that you would see from traditional conservation groups, so public lands and natural resources is also a huge concern for us. Sustainability is big, but then this is something that's a little bit more unique, I think, to our organization, is we will also weigh in on good governance matters. And so we're actually right now doing a lot of work in terms of absentee voter rights and voting rights in the state of Michigan. And we actually have a whole C3 civic education campaign. And so they're primarily, their only concern is promoting the vote and getting people to turn out to the ballot boxes this November. So that's a little bit about us and also a little bit about our priorities. But that's not why we're here today. We are here today for me to kind of show you some resources about how I can help you align your vote with what your legislators are doing in Lansing. And so again, I think the primary component for that, I'm going to start sharing my screen again, but the primary component for that would definitely be our accountability tracker. So I'm going to go ahead and pull it up here in just a second. I won't show you my my email. Okay, so this is the Michigan League of Conservation Voters website. So if we have a menu here, and I'm going to show you how to get to this landing page, which will let you put in your scorecard. But if you just scroll down to accountability on this side tab of our menu, click on accountability and then click on the MLCV Digital Accountability Suite. It'll take you right to this scorecard, which will let you put in your address, and then we'll get the scorecard in a second. Now, again, we do have scorecards for the governor, the attorney general, the legislature, and then very shortly here, we're going to also have one for the Michigan State Supreme Court. We do have one now, but we're in the process of updating it. The cases that are on the Green Gables website for right now is they're primarily before 2008, so it's not entirely applicable to the people on the court right now. Although there are a good amount of justices that do have cases logged already in our Green Gables accountability tool, but we hope to have an updated version of this by November 2nd, actually. So it's coming soon. So that also exists. But right now I'm going to go ahead and put in a scorecard for 100 North Capitol Avenue. That's the Michigan State Capitol building in Lansing. If I click that, there we go. So it takes me to this page where it outlines the governor's scorecard. So we have given her a 96% rating. She's done 29 positive things for the environment over the course of her term. We've rated her 1 neutral, and she's done 2 things that we've rated as negative. We'll go ahead and take a deeper dive and kind of see exactly what it is that she's done and what it is that we've scored her on. But this gives a nice overview and gives a good overall feeling for how well of a conservation legislator she is. We've got Attorney General Dana Nessel here. She has a perfect score. We've only scored 21 of her actions, but not one of them has been neutral or negative for the environment. Then if you scroll down, it goes ahead and gives you your state lawmakers. So the state senator for the Lansing area is Curtis Hertel. And if you look, and I'm hoping you can't see this little Zoom panel, but if you look at Senator Hertel's environmental score, we've only scored 6 decisions for this session, but he has a perfect record on all of the decisions that we've scored for the Senate this time around. And then if you go ahead and look at the lifetime score, this will give you a better picture of if they've served multiple terms. So this 100%, this big one, only scores the 2019 to 2020 session. So that's if you were elected in 2018 up until now. If they've served multiple terms, this would give you a compilation and a weighted average of decisions. So a little bit better descriptor of that would be Sarah Anthony. She has served multiple terms in the legislature, and I can tell that because she has a 100% scorecard rating for the 2019-2020 legislative session. So perfect pro-environment. We actually scored 7 decisions in the House, but her overall lifetime score is 88%, which means that in a different term, she must have made some decisions that we took it as being negative for the environment. Now, overall, all 4 of the legislators on this page seem to be doing a great job for the environment. My general benchmark is that if they score above an 80%, they're probably environmental champions. So I'm going to go ahead and click on. We'll go ahead and dive into Sarah Anthony because she has that lifetime score average. So if I click on my legislators page, it takes me to her page individually. And I can see a little bit more about her. I've got her contact information, what district she represents, and a link to her web page. But then this also gives me an itemized look at the scorecard for the 2019-2020 season. And so I see that we scorecarded a bill that would allow pre-processing of absentee voter ballots. And she voted yes for that. She voted yes for all of these decisions that were pro-environment, which is great. If I go ahead and I go back to our page, click on, see what Mr. Hertel has done and see if we have any differences. So again, we have that pre-processing of AV ballots. We've got PFAS firefighting foam rules. So this is pretty similar. If we wanted to do a little bit more deep of a dive, we'll go ahead and do Sarah Anthony. I'm going to go to legislators, lawmakers. I'm going to look up Sarah Anthony. Again, see that she has a lifetime score here, and hopefully, click on it. Yep, this will take me back to the same page. So it's multiple ways that you can kind of navigate this. But what I really want to show you that we also have, sorry, I clicked on the wrong thing. We also have a scorecard archive. So our scorecard archives span multiple legislative sessions. And so here is where we might find a little bit more information. If I click in here, it'll take me, it'll redirect me to a PDF. that would give me a more detailed look. And actually, I might as well go ahead and show you that. So at the end of every legislative session, Michigan LCV will put out a large document that kind of runs through exactly what the legislative priorities were for that session, some of the wins that we've made, notable leaders. And so you can go ahead and read through all of this and see if one of your legislators is on our environmental leadership kind of congratulations page. Kind of outlines a bit more about bills and on individuals. So if I go ahead and scroll down here, so this gives us a pretty big list of bills. And so we've got little descriptions of what the bills were, and even more descriptions if we scrolled back up of what the bills were. But this gives you a good estimation of how they're voting. And so if I'm looking at Albert Thomas, he was serving in the Michigan State Legislature last session. He was from District 86, and he had a 27% on our scorecard. So that we kind of provide a little bit of a conservation majority clue over here and provide the lifetime average. But this individualizes votes, shows how they voted on every single bill that we've scorecarded, gives you a good description of the bill. And so if you go in there and you do the reading, that would definitely help you kind of see how your legislator is voting and see if the issues that they voted no on that we ranked no on are actually important to you. So hopefully that helps. Additionally, again, we do have our scorecards for our governor and our attorney general are a little bit different. If we go in and click on the governor and scroll down a little bit. So with the governor, instead of having just reds and greens, we also have included a neutral. And what else is different with our between our governor scorecard and our legislative scorecard is that we apply weights to our governors. And so our weighting system is a 1 through 4 weighting system, 1 being something that was really, it was good. It was important enough for us to score and to take note of, but it didn't really carry a ton of weight for the environment. So that would be something like this ramping up enforcement of CAFO rules to hold polluters accountable. We didn't see that as having a gigantic impact for the environment, although it was notable enough for us to scorecard it. So we weighted it as 1. However, if you have something like the updates to the permit rules or leading the fight against climate change with that new executive order that Governor Whitmer announced on climate change, that's something that has a pretty significant impact on the environment. And so we weight those a little bit more strongly. I'm going to go ahead and jump into the climate change executive order, actually. But if you click on these little down arrows, it gives you a nice big description of exactly what the action was that the governor took in order to protect the environment in this case. So it's pretty long. Sometimes it might be a little bit longer than you might want it to be, but it does provide a really good description of what the issues are. This is not only a great way to really take a deep dive into what is happening at the Michigan state level, but also to get a good sense of what actions your legislators are taking so that you can go ahead and take that information with you into the polls. We do a very similar thing, almost identical for the Attorney General, actually. So if I go ahead and click on the Attorney General scorecard, scroll down. Again, we've only got, well, I shouldn't say only, we've got overwhelmingly positive for the Attorney General. We have 0 neutrals or negatives. But again, we apply the same weight. So the filed suit against the makers of PFAS was weighted as a 1. But the Flint family settlement, the $600 million settlement for Flint families as a result of the Flint water crisis, we weight it as a 2. We see that as a little bit more important of an action. I'm going to go ahead and try and find if we have a 3. Yeah, pursued legal action on behalf of the people of Michigan against PFAS contamination. So Attorney General Nessel sued major chemical manufacturers for damages because of PFAS contamination in the state of Michigan. And so we saw that as a pretty substantial benefit for the people of Michigan and for the environment. So if I click on this, again, it will provide you with a pretty long but very informative write-up about what the decision was and what the action she took was in order to protect the environment. So definitely I would use this tool, not only just to get a sense of what the environment and what the Michigan State Legislature is doing in the state of Michigan, but also as a way to prep yourself before the polls. I know that Sierra Club also is a different organization that does similar accountability levels and tools. So I would also investigate their scorecards if you wanted multiple organizations' perspectives on environmental leaders in the state of Michigan. Again, the League of Conservation Voters, not Michigan League of Conservation Voters, but League of Conservation Voters does this on the federal level. I believe they only do it for the federal House and the federal Senate. I don't believe that they have accountability tools for the president or for the Attorney General. But if you wanted to get a better sense of legislators like your Michigan State House or your Michigan House representative, so I live in the Ann Arbor area, mine would be Debbie Dingell, and our senators, Debbie Stabenow and Gary Peters, are doing, then I would go ahead and investigate League of Conservation Voters' website. They also have information for, of course, the rest of the country. So that would be a better resource for federal level. So with that, I'm going to shift gears a little bit because, this tool is great. It's really great for understanding what your legislator is doing right now, but it only covers your legislator, which is kind of the downside when we're looking at elections. I'm going to go ahead and stop screen sharing, actually. When we're talking about elections and when we're talking about maybe your legislator has been termed out. And so, it's great that they're featured on the scorecard, but there are new candidates who are running for the seat that you might not know anything about. Unfortunately, the Michigan League of Conservation Voters website cannot help in terms of providing a really deep understanding of what legislators are doing in that case, or candidates' positions are in that case. But I will say that organizations will frequently provide guidance in terms of endorsements. And so I would, in that case, I would go ahead and track endorsements for candidates that are on your ballot. I know the League of Women Voters was before me. I'd imagine that they showed everyone how to find sample ballots. But it's super easy. You could go to the Michigan State Elections website, and they would also make it super easy for you to find a sample ballot before you go to the polls. I would study that sample ballot, and then if there are candidates that you don't recognize, I would definitely check out their websites. And so I'm going to go ahead and show you exactly where some of those would be. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. Move this out of the way. So this is Chokwe Pitchford. He is one of Michigan League of Conservation Voters' endorsed candidates for the 2020 election cycle. And Chokwe has an endorsements tab. Most candidates do if they have a website. Sometimes they're a little bit more difficult to find. Sometimes you kind of have to hunt on the website for their endorsements. And I'm going to go ahead and click on his. It'll take me to my Facebook. And so pinned at the top is a list of endorsements that he's received. And so I would go ahead and scroll through this. And take note, if you're an environmental activist, if you're an environmental voter, take note especially of the environmental organizations that you recognize. But for me, scrolling through, looking, I see that he's been endorsed by the Michigan League of Conservation Voters. He's been endorsed by Sierra Club. He's been endorsed by some major leaders in the state that I just personally know would be environmental champions. So people like Bernie Sanders and Barack Obama, as well as Governor Whitmer, who again we saw has a perfect score on our scorecard. You can generally get a sense of how a legislator or a candidate would behave in office based on the people who are willing to put their names out there and endorse them. And again, I kind of want to stress, because I've heard from multiple people that they don't necessarily trust endorsements because people just will slap their name on anything. At least I know for the Michigan League of Conservation Voters, we put them through a pretty rigorous process in terms of earning our endorsement. So they have this session, they filled out a 30-question questionnaire that made them answer questions about how they would protect Michigan's land, air, and water. And then we followed up on that questionnaire. It was scored. So we didn't really give endorsements to people who didn't get a sufficiently high score on that questionnaire. But then we would give them an interview, and so we would invite them to a 30 to 1 hour minute meeting just to talk to them, get to know them, and ask them again more questions about their environmental priorities, kind of vetting them to make sure that they would be environmental champions. And then we would give them the endorsement as long as they were approved by a committee that was put together by our board members. And so there's a multi-step process to a lot of organizations' endorsement processes. And so generally, I would say that you can trust when candidates are endorsed by a multitude of environmental organizations that they will be conservation legislators. So I'm going to go ahead and show you. So this is a list of the current candidates that Michigan LCV has endorsed. Again, you can look at endorsements on every individual candidates' websites. Most candidates have them. Sometimes, again, it's a little bit more difficult to find. But you could also always contact the campaign itself, and ask for a list of endorsements. But again, scrolling down, so Michigan LCV has endorsed two Supreme Court justice candidates for this cycle, Elizabeth Welch and Bridget Mary McCormick. And then we have a whole host of Michigan state legislators. So again, a pretty robust list. We do not so some organizations will not endorse in every race. That's normal. Again, I would reach out and see check multiple organizations for their endorsement lists. So Michigan LCV might not endorse in a race that Sierra Club does endorse in. Same thing with Clean Water Action and the Michigan Environmental Coalition. So again, I would look through and my primary strategies for oh look, we even have Oakland County executive and commissioner races. But again, my strategy for ensuring that your environmental values are lining up with what your legislators are doing, and also carrying that to the ballot box, would be first to utilize accountability tools that are already at your disposal. So like Michigan LCVs, like national LCVs, like Sierra Clubs, to get a better sense of exactly what your candidates, what your legislators are doing on the environment. And then I would take a look at their endorsements, keep track of who is endorsing in what races, and what candidates have received what endorsements. I want to caution people against just voting for whoever seems like they would be an environmental advocate. I really do encourage you to go in and do the research, track the endorsements, and do the accountability tool, simply because there are a lot of situations where there are a lot of situations in which the person that you think would be the best for the job might not actually be the best for the job. So again, basing your decisions on data and on endorsements would be my biggest tip. Again, actually, yeah, that's pretty much it. Doing the research, getting acquainted with the decisions that your policymakers are making in Lansing, and then, you know, I think it's important to stick with it as well. So it's great to be in a frenzy right before election season, but it's also important to ensure that your legislators are doing what you want them to do in the middle of the session as well. The voting, the election season is the best time to really voice your sentiments, but keeping in contact with your legislators, being comfortable calling them and writing messages is honestly also a huge part of ensuring that environmental policies actually get passed in the state of Michigan and in government in general. I have joined multiple organizations that have sought to influence policy making, and the number one thing that we hear from legislators is them thanking us for contacting them, because it's true. They're going to listen to whoever they hear from the most, and a lot of the times that's unfortunately, in many cases, that's not the people. And so if you have a passion for environmental issues, don't just stop at the ballot box. Like, please go to the ballot box, use all of the information that you have at your disposal in order to make a well-informed and educated vote. But don't just stop there. Be an activist in every way possible, and I can promise you that the work will pay off, and we've already seen it pay off. So again, I want to thank you. I want to leave sufficient time for questions and answering. So Rose, if you are ready for some questions and answers.
Yeah, so thank you so much, and especially for that little last piece. That's a great point. We are very, very much focused on the election right now, but it cannot just be, you can't just drop the issue after the election. Absolutely. So thank you for that. I do have a question that I got in the chat. Just asking about your journey, where you started and how you got to where you are, and how you were educated on this information. And so if you could actually share that would be fantastic.
Yeah, of course. And sorry, I kind of skipped over that a little. So my name is Hallie Fox. I'm gonna go from now backwards, if that makes sense. So currently I am a government affairs intern at the Michigan League of Conservation Voters. But before that, I recently graduated from the University of Michigan. So to all my Wolverines out there, go blue. I know that there are other rival schools maybe on this call, but I am a Michigan graduate. I got my bachelor's out of the class of 2020. So Rona class, I understand you, I hear you, I feel you. But I got my bachelor's in political science and the environment. But I would say that my environmental journey didn't really start until right when I entered college. One of my close friends, Catherine Garton, really, I knew that I was passionate about environmental issues. I have known that since I was in 5th grade, but I didn't really get involved until one of my close friends, Catherine Garton, introduced me to an organization called Citizens Climate Lobby. Citizens Climate Lobby is a national organization. It's actually an international organization that lobbies for a carbon fee and dividend policy in the federal government. And so that organization is a wonderful organization to build connections and to so their whole shtick is that they have 2 lobby days a year where they actually have a conference in the nation's capital in Washington, D.C., where you can go in and learn a bit about the bill that we lobby for, get educated on it, and then actually go to Capitol Hill and sit in meetings with our federal legislators. So I've been in meetings with Gary Peters, Debbie Stabenow, some state house representatives from other states even, my own legislator, Debbie Dingell, twice now, actually. And so they're a great organization in terms of getting in and being very comfortable with talking to organizations. But then once I got into CCL, I was kind of like, okay, yep, this is it. This is what I want to do with myself. And so from there, it's a flurry. I just kind of looked at every opportunity and grabbed every opportunity that I could. How I got to be at Michigan LCV is that I noticed that my county's environmental council was seeking applicants for a sustainability representative from the youth. And I was like, well, I am young. And so I applied for it and was eventually appointed. And that's where I met some more community activists in the environmental world. And one of them was Lisa Wozniak, who is Michigan League of Conservation Voters Executive Director. And from there, after I graduated, she said, hey, you want to come join us? And I said, sure. So that's a little bit about me. Rose, you have my contact information as well. I love talking to people. I love meeting people. And so if you ever have questions about me or you want to connect, hopefully Rose can drop my contact information in the chat as well.
Absolutely, we will definitely send that out with the recording of this and then recordings of our other sessions as well. Another question for you, do you have any suggestions for local elections? It can sometimes be hard to find information on local races for commissions, township and city boards, like the very small ones. So do you have any suggestions about that?
Yeah, so I definitely know that, as you said, local elections are honestly a lot more difficult to keep track of. And I have to say that the only reason why I really know anything about local elections is because I've made friends with some of the county commissioners in my county. And so I would highly encourage you to reach out to your own county commissioner. Send them an email. They're usually very friendly, and a lot of the time, actually, I will go ahead and say all of the time, they're people that might be a little bit older than you, but are just like you. They're good people. I would go ahead and reach out to them and get to know them. They like getting to know people. That's actually kind of their whole job. Ask them those questions. Ask them those questions about like, okay, who are the local candidates that align with my values? Other than that, showing up to meetings is also a good way. I know that's incredibly time intensive, but just becoming more involved in your local political scene will really, really help in that. And then taking that information that if you're more involved in the local political scene, and then broadcasting that on your platforms is another way to not only get educated, but help educate others.
Absolutely. Awesome. And then a follow-up question to your note about not stopping at election time. What is the best way for people to stay up to date with what their representatives are doing at that time when they're not emphasizing and broadcasting it in order to get people's votes?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So I would keep in touch with the organizations that that you think align with your values. So Michigan LCV has a newsletter. It's a weekly newsletter called 3 Things Thursday. We send that out every week to our email list. And so that kind of details activities that are happening at the state level. I would sign up for, I would sign up for as many organizations that you think reflect your values and that you trust. sign up for their email lists, because they will tell you information that candidates might not, if it's negative, especially. And the news. Keeping in touch with state news. These sites do require subscriptions, and I'm not quite sure how expensive they are because I got them through my work. But Gongwer, G-O-N-G, I'm going to spell it out for you folks at home, Gongwer, Gongwer News, covers the Michigan State Capitol, as well as MIRS, capital M-I-R-S. So staying in tune with those are kind of Lansing Insider pages, but they are very informative.
Okay, and are either of them partisan?
No, they're both nonpartisan.
Okay, excellent. So another question, when you write your lawmakers, do they actually read it? You mentioned that people listen to people that they hear from the most. Is there really power in emailing your elected officials when they're, not your smaller local ones, but Debbie Stabenow or something like that?
Right. So yes, there is power in it. I don't want my hesitation there to underscore that at all. Absolutely, there's power in it. Someone listens to it, whether it's them individually, but that every call, my dear friend Catherine worked for Senator Peters for a while in his office, and it was her job to listen to the calls and log them and report them. And so she would flag major issues that came up in her listening to the calls. But I also think that there's much more power in numbers, right? And so if I call once, great, I called once, that's awesome. That will be logged, it will be noted. But if I call every day for a month, people will definitely take notice of that. Or if me and 10 other of my friends all call on the same day about the same issue, that's definitely a really great way to get noticed. And so one thing that I really like, again, about Citizens Climate Lobby is that we organize phone banks. And so there'll be, pre-pandemic, there were 60 of us in a room all calling the same person about the same issue. They're definitely going to take notice of that. So again, strengthen numbers, get your friends involved, get your local organizations and your clubs on campus involved too. Phone bank nights are great.
Yeah.
Order pizza. It's awesome.
That sounds like fun. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I know you have to run around 3:45, but do you have anything that you want to wrap up with? Any parting notes or recommendations for mostly college level students?
Yeah. Stick with it. Always stick with it. But I want to offer a couple words of encouragement. You guys are doing great. Just by tuning into this or watching this later, you've shown that you have a passion and a deep interest in the issues, and I want to applaud you for that. That will take you by itself farther than you ever think it will. So stick with it. You are doing great. We are all experiencing tough times during this pandemic, but it will be okay. And then, of course, last thing I gotta say, vote, vote, vote. If you haven't voted yet, please know that you should be dropping your ballot off at ballot boxes at this point. Please refrain from sending them in the mail. If you could drop them off there, that is the best way to do it. Stay safe, everyone, and thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Hallie. Appreciate your time, and we will distribute the recording of this session along with your contact information to all of the registries. So thank you so much, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Great. Have a great day, everyone. I hope to hear from you.
Awesome. So our next session is going to start at 4 o'clock, and it's going to be a panel discussion on on how to find a career with a sustainability company or an environmental justice minded company. And we hope to see you then. So that'll be at 4 o'clock.